So this is going to be the first video on functions, and it's not for a specific grade or mathematics or technical maths because it's more or less the same for all of them. Alright, so let's quickly look at the first question. So let's say this is question 1. Alright, they give us that if x is equal to x plus 1 and g of x is equal to minus 4 over x minus 3. Now, my first question will be, alright, before I even look at the real questions, I need to get an idea of what graphs am I busy with? What type of functions am I busy with? So the fact that this is just a normal x tells me that this is going to be a straight line. A reguit line. Okay, and there's nothing fancy about a straight line. Okay, then I look at my second function, which is g of x. Oh, and look where my x is here. So the fact that x is underneath the fraction, it tells me this is going to be what type of function? This is going to be a hyperbola. A hyperbole. And what is fancy about the hyperbola is the fact that it has two asymptotes. Hy het twee asymptote. Okay, that is what makes it fancy. Alright, now the first question. Let's say they ask us, write down the equation of the asymptotes of G. So skryf neer die vergelyking van die asymptote van G. Now we already said that how many asymptotes does G have? Because it's a hyperbola, it has to have two. So it has to have an x and has to have a y. Now the x is easy. What can x never be? Alright, x can never be 0. So my first asymptote will be x equal to 0. Now the y, where do I get my y asymptote? From what stands after my x, which is negative 3. So my y asymptote gaan wees minus 3. So finding your asymptotes shouldn't be difficult. Guaranteed 2 marks. Alright, now at question 1.2, let's say they'll ask us, okay, calculate the, let's calculate the y-intercept of G. Okay, so bereken die y-afsnit van G. Alright, how do I calculate for y-intercept? I have to make x equal to 0. So in my formula, I'm going to look for x and I'm going to make it a 0. So G of x is equal to 4 over x, am I right? Minus 4 over x minus 3. Now what happens if I put where my x is a 0? Okay, so if I put a 0 there, can I divide with a 0? No. Okay, so this is undefined. Okay, that's ongedefinieerd. Okay, and what I wanted to show you here is why do we say that x is the asymptote? X equal to 0 is an asymptote because you cannot divide with 0. So there is no y-intercept. So if I, for example, ask you why can there not be a y-intercept for G, hoekom kan daar nie 'n y-afsnit vir G wees nie? Then it will be, you show that I cannot substitute a 0 there and it gives me an undefined answer. Okay, now we get to our absolute favorite part, which is sketching this. Okay, so you are going to have to use your calculator for this, and you're going to go into your calculator. First thing you're going to say is shift, oh wait, no, you guys don't even have to say shift with your fancy calculators. Okay, you just go on mode, then you're going to select option 3, which says table, and then it should give you f of x. Okay, so you can just go and put in under f of x, I'm going to put in that I have x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to put in x plus 1, and then I'm going to do the same for g of x. So g of x is minus 4 over x minus 3. Okay, if you don't have a g of x option, it's fine. You'll just do this a second time and put it back into f of x. Okay, but if you have a g function, you're welcome to use it. Then it's going to give me start. Now for safety's sake, I always start at minus 3, but you can start at another number. And then it's going to ask you where do you want to end. So we want to end at positive 3. And then what is my step? My step is going to be 1. Alright, so then the table should look as follows. Alright, so this is the table that should pop up on your calculator screen. So I have x, which is from minus 3 to the 3. Then I have f of x's y values. So if my x is negative 3, my y for f of x will be negative 2. And then I also have g of x, which is my upper graph. So if x is negative 3, then my y will be negative 1 over 6, or negative 1,66. Alright, so then I go and draw my Cartesian plane. Usually they give you the Cartesian plane, but if not, you know how to go and draw it. Okay, so then I'm going to just put in my values 1, 2, and 3. Minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, etc. Okay, so now let's start with my f graph first. So I'm going to plot that somewhere in red. So when my x was negative 3, my y was negative 2. So x negative 3, y negative 2, I make a dot. When my x was negative 2, my y was negative 1. Oh gosh, I'm doing this on the wrong side. Okay, let's just restart. So when it was negative 3, my y was negative 2. When it was negative 2, my y was negative 1. Then when my x was negative 1, my y was 0. Then if my 0, then my y was 1. What do we call these 2 points? This one will obviously be my x-intercept, and this will be my y-intercept. Alright, then at 1 I had 2, at 2 I have 3, and at x3 I have 4. Then because it's a straight line, you take your ruler and you draw a straight line through these points. Alright, and then just label it F so that I know when I'm marking, okay, that was your F. Okay, now let's draw our G. Now remember with G is a hyperbola. So the first thing you need to draw in is your asymptotes. So you first need to go and put in your stipple line here where x is 0 to show me that you know, okay, this line is an asymptote. And then my other asymptote was was y equals to minus 3. So then at minus 3 I have to put in my other asymptote. Okay. And now after putting in the asymptotes, I can start plotting the points. Okay, so when x was negative 3, my y was negative 1,66. So that's about there, we assume. Okay, then at negative 2, it was negative 1. Then at negative 1, it was positive 1. Then at 0, I can't have a 0. So that tells me this is the end of this graph. So this 1/2 is going to go up towards my asymptote, but it may not cross my asymptote. And then I'm going to do the same with the rest. So now at 0, okay, then at 1, I have 2. At 2, no. At 1 I have negative 7, sorry, 1 I have negative 7. Then at 2 I have negative 5. And then at 3 I have negative 4,3. So now I can see, okay, wait, this one is going to start going upwards like that. Okay, and then that is my G graph. So what do you get marks for if I had to mark this? Well, firstly, you will get marks for f of x. Is your y-intercept there? Is your x-intercept there? Is your shape correct? 3 marks. Then you're going to do the same for G. Is my asymptotes there? One more. Is the shape correct? Yes. They look like hyperbolas. And then is my x-intercept there? Yes, it is. If you can, go and calculate it as well. Okay. But that is how your sketching marks will be allocated. Alright, and then I can ask you just normal other questions. Now I can, for example, ask you, is G, okay, is graph G increasing or decreasing? Is graph G increasing or decreasing? Is G besig om toenemend of afnemend? Okay, so how do I know? I always look from left to right. So if I look from my left hand side to my right hand side, so from here to this way, what is happening to my graph? As I'm looking, it's going to go up. Same here, let's say from here, what is happening? My graph is slowly going upwards, meaning that graph G is going to be increasing. Dit gaan stygend of toenemend wees. Okay. So this is, I think, the basics of this for now. So how to get your asymptotes important, how to calculate your y or x-intercepts important. You need to know how to sketch it, okay? And then a general question, is it increasing or decreasing?